Disposable Gloves make great covers, pipes. I'm sure you all recognize this by now. Exhaust cutter for the wind. Another tight cut on a big pipe. It's great for covering over stuff and great for bags. So I'm gonna stick these, all this stuff in here and tape it to that discharge line. Some of these compressor bolts are an enormous pain in the butt to get to, so I'm just going to modify all of them to make it easy on us. We're just clamping them up here in the vice grips, and then I'm going to cut a notch. By the way, if you're still using those little, I don't know what they are, abrasive discs, throw those in the trash and get you one of these diamond blades. This is where it's at. I'm going to cut a notch and then let me show it. Alright, I've got a notch cut there, so we can take a screwdriver and get it in there that way or whatever. It normally doesn't take much to hold the bolt while you're tightening the nut, especially when you got a real rough surface. But let me show this as well. This is called a thread file. And I have one for metric as well, but you can see the different thread pitches, and it's double-sided, so you can move the handle over here. This bolt here is 11 threads per inch, so we're just going to take it. You see how it fits in there like that, and it'll take this burr right off. These thread files are really handy. Sometimes you got to use it kind of backwards first to get it started, but you can see it just cleans that thread right up. So now, well, I gotta do the bottom, but yeah, let me do the bottom first. So just a couple swipes with that thread file and that nut will go right on there. So it's going to help us out a lot. On to the next one. All right, let me talk about this for a second. Never, ever, ever use pipe dope on a flare face. So, you know, I can actually feel that with my fingernail. In addition to that, this blue crap dries hard. I've seen that a lot of times, even though they say it doesn't. The flare face and the copper, that's your sealing surface. That's your gasket. The copper is your gasket. Don't ever double gasket. All right? We're gonna get these things looking like this. And then Nylog is okay because all it is a very viscous refrigerant oil. That's all it is. It's literally refrigerant oil that's more viscous than normal. So that's fine on a flare, but don't ever pipe dope a flare. These little sockets are an O'Reilly brand power torque. I've had the metric ones for quite a few years and love them, but got the SAE ones. This is just a real tight little area to get into. These are low profile quarters, and you can put a wrench on them, which makes them even more useful. So just figured I'd show that. You can also get low profile ratchets where this piece here is a lot smaller and closer to the end, but they really need to give more clearance on that, but I guess it just is what it is, since it's going in place of the oil sight glass. It's awfully nice of this compressor to be a blood donor. Just put a little pressure in there, and we're moving this oil over into this one so that we can get the oil regulator over there. A good way to keep your oil hoses plugged so they're not leaking oil everywhere is just these couplings, either straight or a 90. That's just what I had on me. I kind of prefer the straight ones, but get out, get up, get out. Always use protection. We don't want any nasties, any crabs or nothing, you know, getting in there. Only thing they had at the supply house was the Nylog Red, and it doesn't say that it's HFC compatible, but that might just be because people get their panties in a wad over all this stuff. I got POE oil in there, and you see that one drop of Nylog. Let's just see if it's soluble in POE, because if it is, then you've got absolutely nothing to worry about. If it's not, then you just want to make sure you're not, you know, dumping it in the hole of a flare or something. So let me stir this up and let's take a look at it. All right, it's definitely not soluble in POE. I've done this with the blue stuff and it dissolves perfectly. So if you were ever wondering about the difference between the red and the blue, if you're going to use the red on a POE system, you got to be careful you're not going to clog up some kind of little filter screen or something else. If I'm reaming a pipe that's loose, I like to hold it upside down and ream it so that all the shavings fall out. But otherwise, you can shove a paper towel in here while you're sanding and reaming, and then just pull it back out to flush everything this way. The reason that you're going to ream these pipes and stuff, it's most important on liquid lines, but even on vapor lines, you're reducing the turbulence by taking off this lip right here. This is hard to get in focus, but some dummy put that blue like leak lock shit on this flare. So I've got to clean that off, but also they didn't deburr it. And man, that is so hard to get in focus, but there's this big old burr. You can kind of see it there on the shoulder. And I don't have a lot of pipe here to redo it, so I've got a Brillo pad taped on my mouth, so I'm gonna go up there and just polish it, and then we'll take a look at it. Alright, I've basically given it a new face there, so that should seal very well. I really like these mufflers. This is a, like if you're gonna fill up paintball tanks or any kind of high pressure tank, this is the muffler you would use to bleed off the hoses. Anyways, I really like these mufflers for bleeding off nitrogen. You know, it's not necessary, but it allows a lot of nitrogen to bleed without making that really shrill, irritating sound that you get if I were to just let this nitrogen loose. So we're getting a ton of flow there without that really high-pitched sound that hurts your ears. I've got another one somewhere that I'm going to put down there. It's just a lot of flow without that really sharp sound you get when you just let it loose. Alright, we're trying to get some oil in this oil reservoir. We're pulling a vacuum now on the system, and so we're just going to use vacuum to suck that oil in. And that's a little slow going, but I'd say we're getting 1 gallon maybe every 5 to 10 minutes, but it's better than trying to pump it in the system for sure. We're starting to get oil in our regulators now. The way that these work is the same way that the oil separator works. There's a float in here with a needle valve, and when that float comes up to the proper level, it'll close that needle valve off. A lot of oil. I really like this thing right here for cutting down bolts. It's kind of like a shear, and what it does is chops them in half amazingly easy, even on the 1/4 inch, and so the threads are nice and perfect. But I'm going to use it to cut down some bolts for this, to mount this Centronic oil safety. I'll show you how it works. That right there is right where I want to cut it, and I believe this is a 1/4 inch, but what I normally do is I have the one that I've marked, and I go in there like that, and just run the other one up to the mark. So all it takes is a little tap of the hammer. And that end just flies right off there. And then you can see it doesn't even have a burr that makes it difficult to unscrew. That's a perfect cut, and the threads are perfect. I really like this little wire labeler. It just works really well. You can pull these levers down and there's your label, and then just very easy to cut, but it's great when you need to make a bunch of connections. These are my favorite strippers for doing a lot of connections. They're just really nice. Well, let me do that one. It's hard to do one-handed. Get right in there. Some of the wires that have the clear coating on them, you have to do it a few times. But anyways, you can just get in there. It does a great job stripping wires, and these are kind of hard wires to strip because of that clear coating they've got on them. I wanted to take a minute to talk about this automatic stripper. This is by far my favorite automatic stripper. I mean, I have stripped thousands of wires with this thing. But I did want to show something. If you're gonna try and use this on thermostat wire or any very small wires, you can adjust the tension. So that's one way to deal with this problem. But the jaws, these jaws in the front, will bite this insulation kind of hard sometimes. And when you're dealing with old thermostat wire, it will tear that up and can create shorts right there. So the best way to do thermostat wire, any small wire, is just to grab it and just pull. Normally I'd be holding this if I wasn't holding the camera, but you can see that's the way to do it. So just FYI. Compressor was replaced previously, and you can see the way that they did this. You know, it works, but it's just kind of nasty, and you've got wire nuts everywhere. What my preference is when I've got a lot of wires to splice is to use these spade connectors, because not only is it a lot cleaner and lower profile, but you can take them apart and take measurements and all, you know, and test your voltages and do everything that you need to do. I typically put the female ends on the power sides of things, because a multimeter prong goes right in there, and I'll show that here. Depends on which style you use as to how you do this, but on some of them the metal part is big enough to stick a probe in. On this style, it just fits really nicely between the plastic and the metal. Look at this thing. This is like one of those tropical centipedes that kills mice and whatnot. Maybe not that big, but dude, that thing is scary. Oh God. I bet you those are little venomous things right there. Oh, maybe they're up front. That is gross. Oh my gosh. That thing gets around really good without having a head. Holy shit. That's what I was concerned about. This thing biting us. Look at those. Look at those fangs right there. Golly. Those are wicked. Yeah. Now, I was afraid we go to grab something. All of a sudden, you know, you got something biting your finger. Oh, sick. This thing, after all this time, is still moving. It's been overnight. Crazy.